And hello there, it's Dr. Brenda, sociologist, financial coach, founder of Gutsy Women Finances Community, full-time RVer, traveling the country with my three cats. You might be seeing Coco here hanging out at the window. Hey, please subscribe below if you already subscribed. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. I'm coming at you in May 2022, and big shout out to my friend Erica. Congratulations, Erica. Erica bought a a Class C motorhome and has hitting the road. Been out for a couple of weeks and had a rough couple of weeks, and boy, there is a learning curve. All of our rigs are a little bit different, but there is a learning curve that we all have to go through, as painful as it is. And but once you got it, guys. You do. So I asked her. I said, just ask me all these questions, and I'm going to compile the questions and answer them in a video. So these are my tips for new RVers. I actually have a 3 series now. So part 1 is RV maintenance and logistics. And then I've got part 2 coming up, which is about lifestyle choices, my lifestyle. Part 3 is about traveling with cats. So welcome to part 1, RV maintenance and logistics. Now, big caveat here, this is my rig. It's a Class B+. What I talk about would apply to generally a Class B+ or a Class C. I have a 2012 Winnebago Aspect 30C, and I tow a Jeep Cherokee. I flat tow behind it. So, when I first bought the rig and I looked at what I need to have to RV, I made a mistake. I didn't really pay attention to what people were driving, so I bought some things that, maybe they work if you've got a camper that you're towing behind a truck, but things I didn't need for a Class B+, Class C motorhome. So that is my caveat. So the things I'm going to talk about are particular to my rig and particular to Class B pluses and Class C. So some of this may be relevant to you, others maybe not. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with maintenance. So maintenance and logistics. Maintenance. Erica asked me, what types of maintenance do you do? And another caveat is, I just came up with the thare that I think of that I regularly do. There are probably a lot more things. If I were a mechanic, are, I'm sure, a lot more things that I would be doing. Always check your owner's manual. The owner manuals for a rig like mine is about 5 inches wide, 5 inches tall. So yeah, it's a big owner's manual. But I do oil changes in my engine and have that tuned up annually or about every 7,500 miles. So generally, I've been wintering at South Padre Island, and I'll get the engine, the oil changed, and just checked out before I get to South Padre Island, so it's set to go. I have automatic jacks, and there is a hydraulic fluid. It's in a compartment that actually has a key. It's right by my step outside. And periodically, I've had issues with an automatic jack that doesn't come down, and I will check that hydraulic fluid regularly. I would say at least once a month. The air conditioner, the first year I didn't really have it cleaned out. Now I'm trying to do that about twice a year, once in the summer and then again in the wintertime. The rooftop, I'm not comfortable up on the rooftop, so I have had the RV mechanics, RV repair guys go up there, check the rooftop and seal it. I would do that again while I'm at my winter home. And the biggest advice I have is just stay on top of things. If things don't seem right, have it checked out as soon as you can. There can be a long wait for parts and a qualified RV mechanic. So this last time, for instance, I had an mobile mechanic come check out and fix my step, and asked him, because he charges just to come out to my site. It was $150, but then he'll run the diagnostics. I said, can you take a look at the slides? At the slides, I've got one that's not coming in quite as easily, not going out as easily as the others. So he gave me some advice, and I've got some roller bearings on order. So those are ways that you can sort of stay on top of things. If they're going to come out to your site, have them look at a couple of different things. Maybe they don't need fixing right away, but you can get it on your schedule and order parts. Where do I take the RV for maintenance? I was spoiled when I bought this rig. I drove a couple miles up the road I was in Virginia, to a place that handled both the engine and the coach in the entire RV, the entire Class C motorhome. I didn't realize how special that is, because now I'm finding that if I've got if I want to get the engine, the oil changed, if I want to get engine maintained, checked out, I have to go to one facility, and then I have to go to another facility if there's something going on with this coach. So definitely check online reviews, and I'm just going to say it, a lot of RVers avoid Camping World services departments. They have a pretty low reputation. I've got a Ford engine, and one of the things I like about having the Ford is it's very easy to find someone who can fix a Ford engine. A lot easier than if you've got a Mercedes-Benz diesel engine, for instance. So my Ford engine, I take that to a big truck repair or maintenance shop. I'll look at ads in local RV parks if it's about that time where I need to get the oil change. I'll ask for references from camp hosts and park staff. And then mobile mechanics, I will research them online. I'll call ahead if I can. So for instance, the step wasn't going in when I left Florida, and I can't get a mobile mechanic. I'm on my way out, so I called ahead, looked ahead at where I was going to be at the next stop, and got someone lined up to come out the next day. So, yeah, once they're out there, have them do additional diagnostics. Couple of tips, guys. I've got, you got to carry some cash with you. You got to hide some cash because some of the mobile mechanics, some folks who wash your RV prefer cash. So you might need to have some cash. Also, it can be difficult finding a shop that does warranty work in a timely fashion. So one thing they might ask you is it warranty work? A lot of them won't take it, or your rig is going to sit for a long time. If you get a winter home, if you have a winter home like I do, try to establish a relationship with the local RV mechanic there and try to get most of your things done there. What are the best sources for help if you need it? It depends on the type of help. For repairs and questions about the rig online, I actually have had really good success with my Facebook group. It's a Winnebago Aspect Owners Group. And if I've come across an issue, more than likely somebody on that group has come across the same issue and can tell me how to fix it, tell me where to find the answer. Technology, rvmobileinternet.com, Mobile Internet Resource Center. Also, in the description, I am going to give you a link to this PDF download so you can click on these links yourself. So if you're busy taking notes, you should be able to get that download and go to these links pretty easily. For support, I'm a solo woman RVer, so Facebook groups, there are a number of RV Facebook groups for solo women RVers. There are RV groups for full-time RVers. There are RV Facebook groups, for just about anything you can imagine. So for sort of emotional and just encouragement, sometimes I will go there. How often do you have to refill the propane tank? Where do I refill it? Okay, now this again is very specific to my motorhome because I don't have an external propane tank. Mine is internal. It's 18 gallons, holds 18 gallons. And by the way, the propane is never topped off. There's always have to leave air at the top level. So even when you've just had it filled up, it might say 2/3. That's okay. What I have found, especially being caught in the horrid Texas February 2021 disaster, where almost the whole state lost power, is that the propane lasts a lot longer than you think. Check the gauge, but I was really amazed. I was caught in freezing cold temperatures, no And the only thing that was keeping everything warm was the propane, and boy, it lasted a lot more days than I thought it would. The biggest use, the need for the heating is really in cold temperatures. So my furnace, for instance, runs off of electric heat unless it gets below a certain temperature, then it clicks into propane. I fill the propane maybe twice a year. I top it off before setting up in the winter, and then I'll just check the gauge, and maybe this summer I'll top it off again. But it really lasts me a long time. And cooking doesn't take a whole lot of propane, and then also when I'm driving or when the power goes out, the refrigerator switches to propane. But again, it lasts a lot longer than you think. I like to use Love's to fill up my propane. They typically, if there's larger gas stations, often by the interstate, that works with big trucks. They often have propane. You're going to see it set aside, and you can park next to it. And usually there's a bell or a way to contact the service people. You cannot fill up your own propane. You have to be certified to fill up propane. So that's not something you can do. You got to call the staff and have them fill up your propane tank. There is an on and off switch, so when they fill it up, they'll turn it off. I ask them to turn it back on. Also have them show you where that on-off switch, so that if you're having an issue with propane, it might be the simple matter of turning the switch back on. That's all about propane. So those are the big things about maintenance. Now let's talk about the logistics of RVing. How long did it take to get comfortable driving your RV and with the Jeep being towed behind? Boy, when you're starting out, it's like, I've got 32 feet plus the Jeep plus the tow bar. It's like 50 feet I'm driving here. Now, it took me, I would say, 3 trips to get pretty comfortable with it, and the big key is using those side view mirrors. Those mirrors are great. I can see my blind spot on both sides of me. When I first started out, I'm always going to stay in the right lane. I'm not going to pass anybody. There's always some real slow poke in the right lane, and so then I started to okay, I can pass. And I must have waited like a mile. Their headlights were long in my rearview mirror before I pulled back into the right lane. Now I've got a really good sense. I mean, just you figure this out over time, how much length you need to pull back into the right lane. And so I am very comfortable. I have to admit, every time I pull out of a campground, it can take me 5 to 10 minutes, just like, okay, here we go again, and you get right back into it. It's really okay. Now, the other thing that helps me a lot is I have an RV GPS. I plug in all of the dimensions of my RV, the width, the height, the length, the weight of the RV. And that RV GPS has saved me a lot of time. So sometimes I'm thinking, why did you go on this road? You just passed up the sign that said to the campground. And lo and behold, that RV GPS has gotten me where I needed to go. So one time, for instance, I tried to subvert it. I had gotten to know the local roads. I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. Why should I go all the, couple miles around when I can take this road directly? So I'm like, all right, I'm going to kind of ignore this GPS. Well, when I got to that road, there was a weight limit on the bridge, and my RV weighed more than that bridge could handle. So I'm like, okay, GPS, I am listening to you from now on. I'm going your route. You're going to get me out of this. It has worked every time. I really can't even stress the importance of getting an RV GPS, especially if you're towing behind you, if you've got a longer vehicle. It is expensive, but it eases my mind driving. I've been very fortunate. I've not had it take me, I don't like it when it says make a U-turn. Now that I can do without, but for the most part, that RV GPS has helped me drive a lot more comfortably, stress-free. Do you avoid using your own toilet and sink when you only have electric and water hookups? And I can say a lot of times I only have electric and water hookups. So It really depends on the size of the holding tanks and the number of people. So, for instance, I have a 27-gallon tank, black tank capacity. I have a 35-gallon gray tank capacity. And again, being caught up in that storm in Texas, I know that I have gone at least 17 days before dumping. It's not so much, especially for one person, it's not so much the black tank. It is the gray tank that fills up. So the key is to sort of minimize how often you're using the sink, and definitely a shower is going to fill up that gray tank in no time at all. So yeah, I do use campground showers. I flush the toilet when I have to. I minimize dishwashing. Also know that some campgrounds have washing basins, so if you start thinking you're going to, your gray tank is going to fill up, you can start, washing some of your dishes at those basins. Don't rely on the tank gauges. My black tank gauge seems to be accurate. My gray tank, I empty it out, and it's 1/3, it's 2/3. My gray tank gauge doesn't really work. So just be careful of that. I think that's pretty common on a lot of RVs. A little tip that you're kind of wondering, well, I don't know how big my tank is, and I don't know how tall my rig is. Get your RV specs. The easiest way to do that is to Google the make, model, and year of the RV, and then add the word specs after that. So I Google 2012 Winnebago Aspect 30C specs, and I'm taken to RVUSA.com, and it gives me all of the specs. I know exactly everything I need to know. So like when I'm entering that information to the RV GPS, or I'm trying to gauge how long my tanks will last and how big they are, water tanks for that matter too, that's a really easy place to find all the information you need. Are you using solar panels, or do you plan to? Boy, I really, really, really wanted to use solar panels. I looked into it. I don't have a whole lot of roof space up there. The AC's up there. I've got antennas and satellites and all kinds of stuff up on the rooftop. And the biggest thing for me is air conditioning. The solar panels at this point don't produce enough energy to power the AC. And to me, I'm traveling again with the 3 cats. Yeah, the weather's unpredictable. I've got a generator that I could turn on, but I don't really like listening to the sound of the generator, and it's a big expense. So I mean, you Google how much they cost, and with inflation now, I think everything is on the very high end. So $2,000, $5,000, it all depends. So I kind of went in between. I do have a little foldable solar panel. So if I lose power for any length of time and I can draw some power from the sun, I can at least use that to charge my cell phones, work on the laptop, do a couple of things. So that's sort of my compromise. I'd love to go fully solar, but right now the capacity, it's just not worth it for me. Do you have a checklist to set up and to take down camp? And I have to kind of laugh at this question, Erica, because I have a whiteboard, and I mean, I'm hitting my 2-year anniversary, and I had a checklist on that whiteboard, and I finally graduated from that checklist, and that checklist was a reminder for me to do everything I wanted to do. Now what I do have on that whiteboard is my travel plans for the rest of the year. So I have all my campgrounds and the dates and the site numbers, so I can easily reference that when I need it. So for me, again, this is going to be a little different based on what you're doing. I mean, the first thing I have to do is unhitch and detach my Jeep from the RV and back. Usually it's a back-end site, so my first job is to level the rig. When you're new, you forget that, now I've got automatic levels. That's one of the reasons I bought this rig. That is huge, so I don't have to go through all that mechanics of leveling my rig. But my levelers only come off when they come down when the engine, and up for that matter, when the engine is running and the parking brake is on. A couple of times I forgot to put the parking brake on. Little reminder there. Then what I do is I plug into the pedestal, so I typically leave my AC or heat, depending, so that when I set it at a thermostat, so when I plug into the pedestal, takes a couple of minutes, but then I can usually hear the AC coming on or the heat coming on, and that is also the signal for the cats. The cats have figured this out. The cats know now so much when I'm parked. Coco in particular, I mean, she stays under the sofa. She knows when I stop at a rest stop versus stopping at the campground for the night. I don't know how she knows, but they know. But I plug into the pedestal. Next thing I do is I go inside and I'm looking at the cats who usually come out, and Dolly's no problem. Izzy is great. Coco's gotten much better, but when you're first starting out, I just make sure the cats are away from the slides. I extend the slides. Then I go back out, attach the water hose to the spigot, and if there is sewer, if I do have a sewer by my side, I hook up the sewer, and then I bring the step out. I set that little button to off so that the step stays out there. Now, kind of doing the reverse, getting the rig ready to roll, but first I'm doing a good cleaning job. I'm securing the items, make sure the awning is in. I've got my bungee cords tying things up in the RV. And for me, I've had lots of problems with tires. Thankfully, not this year yet. I put on 6 new tires, and they're working really well. But I always check the tire pressure. I use a tire pressure monitoring system because I've had so many issues with the tire. So I want to make sure before I go that they're at a good PSI. I empty the tanks if it's a full hookup. Of course, if I'll empty the tanks at a dump station on my way out if I only have a partial hookup. Detach the water hose, put it away. I bring the slides in. I detach the power cord, bring the step in, pull the jacks up, and do a walk around. And by the way, I have this list and a checklist and all kinds of things in a journal. I'm going to give you the link to that journal, the RV Superwoman journal, the Camper Superwoman journal, at the very end. So hang on for that link, because that does have checklists. It has all kinds of places for you to write your campground reviews, note your experiences, put in maintenance notes, record the dimensions of your rig. Really good stuff. How far out do you plan for travels? What things do you consider? I know that I am a super planner. People are like, what do you mean you just made reservations for 2023? I did. So, and let me tell you a little bit about how I do that and why I do that. The tool that I use is called RV Trip Wizard. This is now part of RV Life, but that is a link to the tool. I have a laptop, and I've tried to use it on like a tablet, and to me the laptop, I can see everything. It's much easier for me to plan and look at reviews of campgrounds there. My preference is national, state, county parks, and Corps of Engineer campsites. So my must-haves, I've got 3 must-haves. I've got to have electric hookup for sure. I prefer electric and water. If there's sewer, that's great, but we're talking must-haves. I gotta have cell service. I have both. Actually, it's Cricket and Visible. With Cricket runs off of AT&T, Visible is Verizon. So I'm looking for cell service because I do work from my RV, and I need to use that as a hotspot. And then I'm also looking at decent reviews. So for me, I am planning 12 months in advance. Some of the state parks have 12-month rolling reservation systems. I mean, 12 months, 11 months. I mean, Florida is really hard to get into, and it just varies. Some states are 4 months, some are 5 months, some are 12 months. They're all over the board, but if you're traveling around the country, you really have to pay attention. And some of the private resorts in popular places book up a year or more in advance. So, for instance, trying to find a place at Glacier National Park, you've got to book up, I'd say, more than a year in advance. A lot of these places just, you're going to be here in 9 months? No, we've been booked up forever. So plan as far in advance as you possibly can. Do you use any apps to look up campground information and reviews, or apps for other things? Oh, you bet I do. So It's waiting for this to load up. Come on, speaking, there we go. So, speaking of cell service and internet. So, the RV Trip Wizard comes with RV Life campground reviews. So, that's very, very, very easy for me to just quickly look at those reviews while I'm doing my planning for RV Trip Wizard. A number of people like Compendium. So, that's also got really good reviews. So, those are the two biggies as far as I'm concerned. I have a lot of other apps that I use. So these are some of the ones that I look at the most. One is coverage. I can look at AT&T and Verizon cell phone coverage. And again, I need coverage for my business. It's not as accurate as I hope sometimes, because sometimes I'm surprised that the service, the cell towers are not as strong as it says in the coverage app. All Trails. I love to hike. Can't go without All Trails. I pay for the premium option, which allows me to download the trails, and I have been saved dozens of times by using the All Trails apps. When you navigate, it tells you if you're off the trail, and boy, I've heard that tune quite a bit and been able to get back on the trail. I've got a lot of weather apps. I've got something called Dark Sky, but I use weather apps. There are two special ones that I use. One is Tornado and one is Tracks Wildfires. So those are some of the big apps that I use. I use a lot of other ones, but these are what I would consider the most critical. What is your monthly budget? Oh boy, the gas prices are kind of killing my budget. How about you guys, huh? So I did a video on how much it's going to cost me to RV in the summer 2022. And actually, when I'm looking at this, was before the gas prices really went up to, I'm in South Carolina, and it's $4 plus a gallon. And so I did this video estimating, I think, about $3 per gallon, but I also overestimated how many times I was going to fill up. So for me, that summer is costing about $1,753 a month for just the campgrounds and the gas. My goal when I started out was to average about $2,000 a month, all my living expenses. My actual costs are closer to $3,000 a month, and sometimes that goes over, absolutely. The major expenses are my health insurance, my RV and Jeep insurance warranty. By the way, I tried to get a quote on new RV insurance. I got a good quote. I wanted to switch over to another company. I've had 3 glass repairs on my Jeep in 3 years, and I cannot get a new policy on my Jeep. So I'm stuck paying, with RV Jeep insurance, and I have a unextended warranty, $319 a month health insurance right now, $478. So those are my big expenses. But I'm going to tell you what, the rates vary considerably by season and location. The summer is definitely more expensive than the winter. Winter rates tend to be more reasonable. So the monthly rates, if you can get a monthly rate, that will tend to bring the expenses down. Example I use, I just mentioned that I got $1,753 average for my summer months in campgrounds and gas. Wintertime, I'm parked in one place for 3 months, so my gas expenses for the RV go down to zero, and I pay about $600 a month plus electricity in the winter months. So you can see how it varies, but the biggest challenge for budgeting is the variability of those monthly expenses. So because I'm planning out a year in advance, and I'm using whatever reservation windows folks have. So for instance, next month I'm going to be making a reservation for a Texas park in November. And when I make that reservation, I have to pay the entire amount up front. So I can be paying up front for a reservation that's a year out from now. So certain times, certain months, it's like I've loaded up on a whole bunch of reservations that are 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months down the road, and my credit card bill will be really astronomical. And so that causes the variability. The other thing is RV maintenance is not cheap, and repair expenses, and then I've had some pretty big pet bills. I'm at a period now where the cats are needing some extra attention. Those are things that are going to throw your budget way off, and that's why you should have an emergency budget and refill it as you need it. So those are the two biggest challenges to budgeting. Do you have a home base? Kind of yes and kind of no. So I set up domicile in Florida, and I have another video that explains the process and why I chose Florida. If you're full-timing and you don't have property in any other state, most people are choosing Florida, Texas, and South Dakota. You're traveling around the country, so you don't really want to pay income tax when you're not benefiting from all of the government services in that state. But also, some of these states are very friendly to RVers, so I know that I can get my driver's license, I can get mail, I can vote in those states because those localities understand that there are full-time RVers using that locality as their domicile. So my domicile is in Florida. Is it my home base? It's not. I have been spending 3 months at South Padre Island, Texas, so I guess in terms of where I'm spending the majority of my time, it would be, I got to be someplace warm in the winter. So right now it has been Texas. And then throughout my travels, I try to visit family, and I've got close family, siblings in Wisconsin, Tennessee, and California. So I'll rotate those into my schedule as well. How do you get mail or deliveries? So one thing I use is called myrvmail.com, and that is Florida-based, and it's one of the reasons I set up my domicile in Florida. There are a number of RV mail services. You can go through. The Escapees has some good ones, some in Texas. So the reason I use my RV mail, and you have to check this in advance, is that I could use that address to get a real ID driver's license. That address allows me to register and vote in that county in Florida. I can use that address for my vehicle registration and for my insurance. Now, so I've had really good experience there at my RV mail, and I think most mailing services, I'm notified when the mail comes in. I can ask them to trash it. I can ask them to scan it. I can ask them to forward it, and they even have a service that for a fee allows me to deposit. They will deposit a check in my checking account. Very, very good experiences with that. Second thing I do is, so when I am in Texas for 3 months, I will try to get a mailbox in my winter home, and that also allows me to have the mail forwarded there. Also do my Amazon shopping. I do a lot of Amazon shopping in the winter because I can send everything to that mailbox. Third thing I do is I ask family and friends to accept mail and packages. So for instance, my vehicle registration is due up in September, and I'm not going to be in Florida in September, so I know I can request it 3 months in advance. So I'm going to look at where I am, and I'm probably going to ask a friend in Virginia if they wouldn't mind if I forward this to them in Virginia and pick it up when I see them. So you figure it out. You do figure it out. It's not that challenging. Wow, this is a lot of information. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments. Either I can answer them in another video, or I might be able to answer them in the comments. And please visit, I've got a store at drbrendamoneycoach.com. You can find both of my journals there. And again, you get the checklists, and these are really help you document your journey and make sure that you're out on the road having the best time you can have. Okay, so part 2 is going to be coming up, so I hope you enjoyed part 1. And until the next time, over and out. Hope to see you at a campground. Bye-bye.